Hello everyone, tonight we are beneath the earth. Not metaphorically, your boots crunch against soil packed with centuries and something hollow answers from below. You have followed a sound you didn't recognize, and now you're standing at the edge of a pit that was not here yesterday. The air tastes like old coins and something older. The trees around you don't breathe. Even the birds have stayed silent, not fled, just waiting. You probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You are here because the ground keeps changing under you. It started 3 weeks ago, didn't it? First with the garden, your rosemary bush shifting a foot to the left, then the mailbox tipping backward as though something beneath had nudged it. A week later, a shallow depression opened behind your shed. You blamed armadillos, you blamed erosion, you blamed your memory. But you never blamed the bones. Until tonight. You crouch by the edge of the new hole. The shape is too clean, too round. It looks dug, but not by hands. There are marks along the edge, not claw marks, not tool marks, but something in between, like pressure rearranged the dirt itself. You don't know what you expected. Maybe a fossil, a fossilized log, an old coin. Instead, something smooth catches the moonlight. Bone. A curve of pelvis, maybe. Maybe not. It's hard to tell when it shifts again slowly, like it's adjusting its postures. A few thousand years ago, they buried their dead in circles here. You learned that on a plaque during a road trip detour. Cenolithic enclosures, the sign read, "Bone rings surrounding hearths, family arrangements of fire and silence." You didn't take a picture, you were in a rush. But the thought of it comes back now and something in your chest tightens. Folklore from the region once said that bones whisper if left too long without names. That they curl toward one another in the dark, seeking the shape of the body they belong to. It was a superstition, of course, but an oddly persistent one. Even now, a few locals still salt their footprints. You lean closer. One of the bones' thin, bird-like twitches toward you. Just a few millimeters, like a compass needle that's just found north. You do not scream. You are very proud of this. Instead, you slide your phone from your pocket and record. The video catches the sound of wind and your own breath, but not the movement. Of course not. It never does. Like the time you filmed your sleepwalking brother rearranging the furniture at 3 a.m. But in the video, he just stood still facing the wall for 20 minutes. You still don't know what to do with that. Your phone glitches, then shuts off. And somewhere to your left, you hear a low grinding sound, like someone turning a massive key. Some researchers still argue whether certain ancient burial mounds were meant to contain the dead or restrain them. A minority theory gently mocked in most journals, but never entirely disproven. One archaeologist claimed the mounds sag inward over time, not from collapse, but from withdrawal. He was not invited back to the symposium. You once laughed about that. You're not laughing now. You stand. Carefully. You take a step back from the hole. The ground underfoot feels too soft, like carpet over gravel, like something is cushioning your retreat. You try not to think about that. Behind you, the wind carries a distant chime. You don't own wind chimes. For a moment, everything sharpens. The trees look clearer, the shadows more detailed. The stars above you seem slightly misplaced. Not in pattern, but in attitude. Like they're waiting for you to notice something obvious. You do not. Instead, you walk back toward your house. Slowly, respectfully, as if excusing yourself from a conversation you didn't mean to overhear. You do not run. The wind chimes ring again, slightly closer. Here's a joke to lighten the mood. Why don't ghosts use stairs? Because they prefer things to remain on one level. No one likes a climber. Your porch light flickers as you approach. You pause, flick it off, then on, then off again. You leave it dark, safer that way. Your door opens easily. You didn't lock it. You tell yourself you forgot. Inside, Everything is where you left it. Almost. One chair is turned slightly toward the window. Your boots are no longer by the mat. They are 10 inches to the right, aligned perfectly parallel, like they walked themselves a short distance and stopped. You sit in the chair that was moved. It feels warm. Your phone buzzes. It has turned itself back on. The video you recorded plays without prompting. There's no image, just static, but the audio now contains a faint hum. A melody, maybe. A rhythm made of breath. You don't remember that part. Another joke. All right. What did the ancient bones say to the archaeologist? You're a little late. I've already moved on. The light in the hallway turns on, slowly. No footsteps, no switch. Just illumination, one bulb at a time. You rise, walk toward it. The hallway leads to your bedroom. And something else. The sound of rearrangement. Drawers being pulled, closets rebalanced, floorboards nudging slightly out of alignment, like someone is trying to tidy up a space they don't fully understand. Folklore said that certain bones rearranged to form memories of old dances, not of people, but of wind, of positions they once held while alive. As if the skeletons miss the gestures more than the flesh, you open the bedroom door. The bed is gone. In its place, a ring of bones. Not just any bones. Familiar ones. Ones you remember studying in anatomy class. Ones you dreamed of once when you were 7 and sick with fever. A shape that feels like it's waiting for something. A U-shaped outline. Your pillow still rests in the center. You take one careful step back. One more joke because you've earned it. Why do buried bones never lie still? Because the dead just can't stop reminiscing. You close the door, and the hallway light flicks off. The fan in the living room turns on. Humming softly like breath, you sit down, and you listen. You don't sleep that night. Not really. You lie down on the couch, the fan humming steadily above you, blades catching dust and memory. Every time your eyes close, something shifts in the house. A creak, not where the wood usually creaks. The quiet clink of ceramic like a teacup, long buried, deciding now was the moment to settle. And in the moments when you do drift, you dream of the bones again. But this time, they're not waiting for you. They're busy, reassembling into something that was never quite a person. A spiral with joints, a rib cage that folds outward instead of in. Not violent, just wrong. You wake before dawn. Mouth dry, eyes still carrying pieces of the dream like wet leaves stuck to your feet. Outside, the wind has stopped. The air is still and slightly warm the way it sometimes gets before a thunderstorm or after a burial. You open the door gently, not wanting to startle anything that might still be finishing its night work. The hole in the yard has changed shape. It's deeper, narrower, more like a tunnel now sloping downward. You can no longer see the bone that moved, but you can see something else, a trail. Scrapes in the soil carefully spaced. Not footprints, not drag marks, just impressions. Like something heavy and jointed paused every few inches to decide whether to go on. And it did. You step back. Your breath fogs the air, though it isn't cold. At breakfast, the toaster turns on by itself. Nothing inside. It clicks, heats, cools. Clicks again, then stops. You unplug it. You should leave. But of course you don't. Curiosity is a stronger trap than fear, especially when the fear doesn't scream. It just shifts, rearranges. There's an old book on your shelf, one of those oversized coffee table encyclopedias you've always meant to get rid of. Burial Practices of the Early Earth Dwellers. Bought it for a Halloween party once. Pages too thick, illustrations too crude. But today, you flip to a chapter you've never read. And there it is, an engraving of a bone spiral. Not labeled, just part of a chapter on pre-agricultural ritual zones. The caption says, arrangement presumed symbolic or mnemonic, its exact meaning has been lost. One footnote reads, some arrangements when disturbed appear to self-correct over the span of days. Recent LiDAR scans show unexplained spatial realignments in multiple sites. Some researchers argue the spiral was not a symbol but a sound, not for the ears, for the body. A map of how to stand when listening to something very old. One theorist even suggested it was a kind of tuning mechanism. She later retracted the paper after claiming her shoes kept switching feet. You look back at your boots by the door. They have turned slightly. Not outward like a walk, inward, as if they're listening now. A joke. All right, here's one. What did the ancient skeletons say when asked to sit still? I'm trying, but my history keeps itching. At lunch, your soup stirs itself, just once. A lazy clockwise motion. You do not eat it. Instead, you take a walk through the woods behind your house. You need to know if the feeling follows. It does. The woods are quiet. Not dead, just observant. The trees sway as if they're fidgeting. The bird song stops every few minutes like a skip track on an old CD. You count the gaps, every 6th minute. You stop doing that when the pattern becomes too regular. There's a clearing you've never seen before. In the center, a flat stone, covered in lines. Not writing, not scratches, just deliberate angles. A grid without symbols. You crouch, brush away the moss. The lines go deeper than they should. In your head, the phrase returns the buried bones that never stop rearranging. You're not sure where you heard it first. Maybe in a dream. Maybe from your grandmother. She once told you stories about her village, how they left bread under the floorboards to keep the bones still. You thought she was being metaphorical. Another joke. Why did the ghost archaeologist get fired? He kept trying to reassemble the skeletons with better posture. You smile, then stop. The flat stone is warm, and beneath it just faintly you hear tapping. Like something is playing the lines like a xylophone. A rhythm not meant for surface ears. You back away, retrace your steps. At home, the fan is still on. The bones in your room have moved. Not all of them, just the vertebrae. They now curve toward the doorway stacked into a question mark. It would be cute if it weren't your question. You remember reading about Neanderthals once, how some of them buried their dead with flower pollen? As if honoring something, or feeding something. One cave in Iraq even had pollen traces from multiple species of wildflowers arranged in rings. Some scholars doubt the interpretation the pollen could have drifted in naturally, they argue. But the arrangement was too neat, too careful. Some things want to be remembered. Others want to be rebuilt. Your phone buzzes again. This time a message appears. Are you sleeping in the wrong shape? No number, no app, just the message floating over your lock screen. You don't respond. Instead, you sit on this couch. The fan turns faster. The bones behind the bedroom door knock once like a polite reminder. You lie down, not to sleep, just to listen. Because deep in the earth, the spiral is turning. You wake if waking is what this is to find your couch shorter than it was. Not physically, but spiritually maybe? Emotionally. The room has shrunk not in walls but in attitude. The corners feel closer. The ceiling sags with thought. And the fan above you no longer spins. It hums slowly like breath remembering how to be machine. You sit up. The knock at the bedroom door has returned. Once, then again, slower this time, as though someone is adjusting their rhythm to yours. You stand. You do not open the door. Instead, you speak aloud. Not tonight. The knocking stops. Outside, the hole is gone. In its place, a low mound, the dirt freshly packed but already marked by small impressions. Not footprints, not claws. More like elbows, joints, like something was moving through itself. You walk around the mound. The birds do not watch you. That's the part that disturbs you most. Not the silence, but the fact that the local life has simply decided this doesn't concern them. You return to the house and find the spiral has extended. Not the bones. The spiral itself. A subtle curve in the placement of your shoes. Your rug curled gently to one side. Even the photos on your wall seem to lean into it. As though the room is learning a shape that didn't belong to it yesterday. You take a picture. The spiral isn't visible, but the photos those lean forward. You delete it and check again. The photos now face straight. Another joke perhaps to ease the chill crawling up your back. Why don't ancient bones write memoirs because they keep changing their timeline? You laugh, just once. Then you go to the attic. You haven't been up here in a year. It smells of insulation, lint, and regret. But in the far corner under a draped canvas, there's a box your grandmother left you. You'd forgotten, or misremembered. You always thought you gave it to storage. But here it is, heavy, wooden, too smooth for its age. Inside, under folded linens and a stone carved into a spiral, you find a letter, unopened, addressed to the one who lives on that place. You are technically that one. You read it. It's not a letter. It's instructions. How to sleep safely when the ground remembers older arrangements. How to speak the phrase that unspirals the bone ring. How to recognize the moment when your breath is no longer entirely yours. It's written in 2 languages. One is yours. The other is slanted curling as though each word were a fossil trying to stand upright. The phrase is simple. You read it aloud once just to test the syllables. The wind chime rings. Inside the attic. You never brought it up here. Some researchers argue that certain prehistoric symbols, particularly spirals and concentric circles, were not just abstract art but mnemonic burial cues, like sleep instructions for the dead. One archaeologist claimed the shapes only appear near burial zones where skeletal reconfiguration is statistically higher. She was gently encouraged to take a sabbatical. She did, then disappeared during a dig in Sardinia. That was 3 years ago. You pocket the spiral stone, you leave the attic. Downstairs, the knock has returned. The bedroom door trembles gently on its hinges. You speak the phrase again. This time, the knock stops halfway. As though the gesture got confused mid-ritual, you open the door. The bones are gone. The bed is back, but it's been rearranged centered perfectly diagonally across the room. Pillows aligned like compass points. Mattress tilted slightly, as though suggesting the earth's curvature. You do not lie down. You step inside and close the door. Your phone buzzes again. A new message. The body is only one arrangement. Try another. No number, no app. You place the phone on the dresser. The mirror shows your reflection, but your mouth doesn't move when you do. You step away. The reflection follows. You wrap the spiral stone in a cloth and place it under your pillow. Your grandmother's note said that was safest. It also said not to let the stone get wet. You try not to think about that as rain begins to tap gently on the roof. Here's another joke to keep things light. How do you know a haunted bone is truly ancient when it remembers the shape of fire? You try to sleep, but sleep does not come. Something else does. A memory, maybe. You are 8 years old. You are lost in a field. It is evening and the light is too gold. You crouch to tie your shoe and find a bone in the grass. It hums faintly when touched. You hear someone call your name, not a voice, but the idea of one. You never told anyone. You left the bone behind. But what if you didn't? What if it followed? You wake again if waking is real to a whisper beneath the floorboards. Not words, just rearrangement. The house is shifting itself into an older posture. You sit up. You do not scream. You are still very proud of this. You step into the hallway. The lights flicker, but only between steps. Never while standing still. You count the bulbs. There are 7. You remember installing 6. You stop counting. The spiral continues. You stop trying to track the days. Time in a spiral is not built for calendars. Instead, you count arrangements. The couch moves 3 inches toward the window each night. The spoons in the drawer now curve slightly to the left. Your toothbrush ends up in the opposite cup every morning. Nothing disappears, but everything resettles, as if the house has begun its own rehearsal for something ancient. The stone under your pillow warms at night and cools in the day, even without sunlight. You no longer question it. Tonight, you find a new note, folded neatly placed on the inside of your sock drawer. It's in your grandmother's handwriting, but you've never seen this one before. It reads, If the bones begin to hum in unison, do not lie down. Keep moving until dawn. Spiral counterclockwise. Do not let them nest. You reread it 3 times. You don't know what nest means in this context. You don't want to. You place the note in your coat pocket and check the living room. The bones are back. Not in your bedroom now, but beside the fireplace, arranged with quiet intent. Vertebrae again, but they've been joined by other bones, long, thin avian or reptilian. Some have teeth. All are laid out in a spiral, but this time the center isn't empty. It's your grandmother's stone. It hums softly when you step closer. The sound is not quite a tone. It's a suggestion, a musical question with no answer. You know better than to touch it. Instead, you watch. The bones shift slightly, not as a whole, individually. Each one rotating a degree or two, pausing, then adjusting again, as though the spiral is breathing. Some researchers once hypothesized that bone tools buried with the dead were more than ritual objects, that they were used to rehearse specific postures or configurations meant to trigger ancestral memory upon death. The theory was laughed out of peer review, but the researcher went on to publish a book titled The Skeleton Thinks in Shapes, which now sells quietly in back corners of online catalogs. You ordered a copy. It arrived last week unopened, even though you don't remember placing the order. There's a chapter on passive geometry. It says, the way bones rest in death might shape the dreams of those nearby. You put the book down. You open the window, let in the night air. It doesn't help. The wind doesn't blow anymore. It drifts like something deciding what shape to take. Another joke to ease the weight. Why did the burial site cancel its theater subscription? Because the actors kept rearranging the plot. You smile. A little. Then the lights go out. All of them. At once. No sound, no flicker. Just darkness, soft and sudden. You reach for your phone. The screen lights up. A new message. Do not step into the spiral. It has begun nesting. You turn toward the living room. The hum has stopped. That's worse. You light a candle. The flame leans sharply away from the spiral. The air in the room feels too aligned, like a tuning fork waiting for a second note. You whisper the phrase again, the one from your grandmother's note. Nothing changes. You whisper it backward. One bone rolls. You whisper it again slower. The spiral tightens. Then footsteps upstairs, not heavy, not human. A pattering made of joints, like something practicing how to walk. You do not go upstairs, you walk outside. The mound has returned. Larger, covered in moss that wasn't there yesterday. A ring of small white stones now surrounds it. You count 12. You don't remember placing them. You remove one stone. The wind starts again. Some folklore warns of spiral mounds, calling them ground nests for sky creatures, even though nothing ever flew from them. Some myths say they pull things downward toward older memories. Others claim they're eggs. You replace the stone. The wind stops. Inside, the bones have rearranged themselves into a perfect helix. The stone at the center is cracked, not broken, just split, faintly like a seed ready to germinate. You step away. The house breathes behind you. Here's another joke. Why do prehistoric bones make terrible roommates? Because they can't stop shifting the vibe. You laugh, quietly. The spiral does not. Instead, it opens. The bones do not scatter. They fold. Inward. The center expands like an iris, revealing a smooth, round depression in the floor beneath. You didn't install that. The wood is still there, but it no longer feels like wood. You drop a coin in. No sound. You drop a second. No return. You do not drop a third. You hear the steps again upstairs. This time they pause, and something hums in response from under the floorboards. Lower than before, deeper, almost amused. You remember the final line of your grandmother's letter? When the spiral opens, choose height or depth. Never both. You light a second candle. The spiral flickers, and in the hallway mirror you are not alone. Something is standing just out of frame. Tall, curved, unfinished, like a statue caught halfway through a dance it never learned. You turn. The hallway is empty. You sit down in the farthest chair, away from the spiral, away from the mirror. You hold the cracked stone in both hands, and you wait for it to hum again. The spiral never closes again. It doesn't need to. By morning, the bones have vanished. All of them. Even the vertebrae that had nested themselves behind the fireplace like polite cats, but the floor still carries the shape. You run your hand across the wood. Smooth. No cracks, no gaps, but it resists you slightly. Not physically, spiritually, perhaps. As if the house has developed its own idea of motion, and yours is no longer invited. You spend the day performing rituals you invent as you go. You burn the note. You unmake your bed. You move the couch back into its original place, then move it again off-center like a question mark. You toss a spoon into the yard. You wear your boots on the wrong feet and walk the perimeter of the property backwards, whistling a song you can't quite remember learning. You're not sure what counts as sacred anymore. At sunset, the wind begins to speak. It doesn't use words. It rearranges branches, rattles window panes, taps the spiral pattern into the grass with careful pressure. You realize it's not the bones that have been moving. It's the memory of how they once moved. You check your phone. No new messages. Just one old one flickering on the lock screen like a heartbeat. The body is only one arrangement. Try another. You breathe in, then out. You don't go to bed. You don't sit on the couch. You lie down on the floor. Not in the spiral, but beside it. Not quite asleep, not quite awake. And then footsteps. Not upstairs, not underfloor, but through the wall. Something has chosen a different route this time. The drywall doesn't break. The pictures don't fall. But they tilt one by one toward the direction of travel. A kind of applause in angles. The air goes cold, then warmer, then begins to pulse. You feel your breath sinking to something older than lungs. It doesn't hurt. That's what surprises you. It feels rehearsed. The cracked stone hums. The spiral's depression in the floor deepens by a single millimeter. Just enough. You sit up. You pick up the stone. It's lighter now and hollow. You shake it gently. Something inside rolls once. A tiny clink, like a tooth or a bell. You place the stone on the windowsill. The wind accepts it. Some researchers still argue whether Neolithic graves were aligned for celestial reasons or something more domestic, aligned not to stars, but to voices only heard underground. One early hypothesis linked burial spirals to sleepwalking paths. It was dismissed after one field researcher went missing for 3 days and returned without shoes, unable to explain why she'd arranged wildflowers in the exact pattern of a bone spiral 20 miles from the site. You think about her now. You think about where your shoes are. They're no longer by the door. You find them in the garden, buried up to the laces, side by side. You don't dig them up. Instead, you write a letter to the next one. You explain the stone, the knocks, the shifting, the jokes because they help. The way the spiral teaches you not how to flee, but how to stay. You sign it with no name. You leave the letter in the attic in the same wooden box. The candlelight flickers. The house breathes in again. A final joke, maybe. Why don't spirals ever retire? Because they're always coming around again. You laugh quietly and feel something in the walls shift approvingly. That night, you sleep on the floor again. You dream not of bones, but of shapes, of paths, of blueprints passed between the roots of trees. And when you wake, the spiral is gone. But the pattern remains. The spoon you threw into the yard has returned. It's lying next to your toothbrush. Both curve slightly inward like sleeping dogs. Outside, the mound has split into two, each with its own spiral. One clockwise, one counterclockwise. You realize your grandmother didn't teach you how to stop it. She taught you how to listen. You step back into the house, and the fan, faithful as ever, hums the spiral into motion once again.